I'm Bryce Knorr, Senior Editor of Barn Futures Magazine, and welcome to a special edition of The Buzz for Friday, August 10th, 2012. USDA released its much ballyhooed August crop report today, and I'll have all the numbers. I'm holding down the fort alone. Market analyst Arlen Suderman is on assignment. Soybeans were probably the biggest surprise today. USDA's first estimate of 2012 production based on in-field surveys came in at just 2.692 billion bushels, 4 million bushels below even our forecast, which was the lowest in the industry. USDA trimmed its yield down to 36.1 bushels per acre, with a small reduction in harvested acreage also seen. Soybean futures shot sharply higher after the report, with November moving above resistance lines drawn off both July highs and the old support lines off July lows. USDA said the average cash price for the crop would range from $15 to $17 in order to trim demand by 363 million bushels compared to its July estimate. That would still leave ending stocks at only 115 million bushels, 4.2% of usage. Clearly, the invisible hand of the market has some very heavy lifting to do to ration demand. Old crop carryout dropped due to stronger crush and exports, so that process has not been effective so far. USDA said 2012 crop exports must fall to just 1.1 billion bushels, 240 million bushels below this year's level. That could happen, of course, but new crop sales already total more than half that amount, and the marketing year doesn't even begin until September 1st. And even with new crop sales at a record pace, China has been on a buying spree this week. USDA announced the sale of another 10.7 million bushels to China today, the fourth big deal this week. CIF basis at the Gulf soared 20 cents yesterday amid talk of fresh export demand. Crush would also have to fall 175 million bushels from this year's level, according to USDA's projections. While the nation's livestock industry is already cutting back, with increased culling noted this week, there will be less DDGs available as protein supplies dwindle. A big crop from South America next winter and spring will refill the pipeline, but until then, the U.S. is the only store in town. Even Brazil was rumored to be shopping for beans to import this week. USDA's estimates for corn weren't quite as shocking as the numbers for soybeans, but the implications could last longer. The government lowered its estimate of 2012 crop production by 2.2 billion bushels to 10.78 billion bushels on yields of 123.4 bushels per acre nationwide. Both those figures were below the average trade guess, but above our estimates. However, USDA cut its forecast for harvested acres by only 1.4 million acres. Our surveys show the total could be off by 5 million, and even that would be above the pattern seen in other drought years when farmers plowed under fields or chopped them for silage. Aflatoxin, always a concern in drought-ravaged corn, could be another worry down the road. As we expected, USDA had a number in mind for 2012 crop carryout based on its tendency not to drop ending stocks below pipeline levels. This year, that number was 650 million bushels. The agency then cut its forecast for usage to meet the target, a process which won't be nearly as numbers on a spreadsheet make it seem. Here's what USDA says will happen. First, old crop carryout was raised even more than we anticipated due to lower exports and ethanol usage. That added 118 million bushels to supply. But that rationing would just be the start. USDA says feed usage will drop another 725 million bushels from this year's already low number, with another 400 million bushels cut in ethanol usage. Exports will drop by 300 million bushels more. The average cash price for the crop would range from $7.50 to $8.90 a bushel to encourage producers around the world to grow more feed grains and to keep end users on an extreme diet. Futures rallied into the report, with December making a new all-time high for any corn contract on Thursday, then repeating that job today. December rallied to 849 in the opening minute, filling an 846 objective on its chart from the gap higher after July 4th. The corn chart continues to show divergence with RSI, which has not made a new high since that gap, and a bearish reversal lower today could cause profit taking. But while volatile trading could be seen, funds are not all that long, and lower prices won't accomplish the rationing that's needed. Wheat was the odd man out today. First, USDA raised its forecast for 2012 crop production, mostly due to a bump in spring wheat as we expected. Demand would be up a little bit more with more wheat fed, but not enough to keep ending stocks from rising 34 million bushels to almost 700 million. With corn in limited supply, feeding more of it would seem natural, but wheat feeding traditionally takes place during the summer after harvest. Once it's graded and put into storage, feeders must look elsewhere. USDA made no changes to its forecast for U.S. wheat exports, but those are off to a slow start. Sales are picking up a little bit, and the fate of new business could depend on supplies out of the Black Sea. USDA cut its forecast for Russia and Kazakhstan by 295 million bushels due to a series of weather problems over the past years, but those losses could be offset a little bit by an increase from Ukraine, though the market's sharply divided about whether or not to believe the government there on that count. Russian officials met this week and maintained they won't limit exports, but again, nobody trusts Moscow after its embargo in the wake of a historic drought 2 years ago. Wheat prices are threatening big bearish reversals lower today, with the market also eyeing wetter forecasts for the plains that could help winter wheat seeding. With waters in the equatorial Pacific warming, El Nino is expected to return soon and continue through the winter. That could help winter wheat growers in the U.S., but hurt conditions in Australia, keeping the outlook uncertain for wheat. Well, Arlen will be back next week to add his take on today's reports and the outlook going forward. And I'll have a complete wrap-up this afternoon in our daily DatelineDrought.com video report.